This video covers Notes 12.6, which is Factoring Polynomials Day 3. If you have not already watched videos 12.4 and 12.5, you need to pause this video and go back and watch those because those are key to understanding 12.6. 12.6 is just a continuation with a couple different examples of 12.4 and 12.5. So our steps for factoring are to factor out the GCF, identify the sum and the product, find the factors of the product that add up to the sum, and fill in our parentheses. So problem 1, I have a 3y squared, negative 39y, and a negative 90. First thing I'm going to do is look for GCF. Looking at all of those numbers, they are all divisible by 3. So I take out that GCF, I divide it out, so I take 3 out. 39 divided by 3 is negative 13, and then negative 90 divided by 3 is negative 30. When I fill in my box, I'm using what's in parentheses, and that's going to be my product, so negative 30y squared. My sum are the two numbers that I'm missing. It's going to be something y and something y, and those two y's need to add up to a negative 13. So in y equals, I'm going to put negative 30 divided by x, and I'm going to look at the table. So negative 30 divided by x, I'm going to look at the table, and I'm looking for two numbers that will add together to get negative 13. So 1 plus negative 30 is negative 29. 2 plus negative 15 is negative 30. So my two factors are going to be a positive 2 and a negative 15. From here, we find our GCFs looking at the columns, so y and negative 15y share a y. 2y and negative 30 share a 2. Y squared and 2y share a y. And negative 15 and negative 30 share a negative 15. So in my answer, I have the factor y plus 2 and the factor y minus 15. On example 2, I look and I have an x squared, an x, and a no x, so I don't have a GCF of an x. I look at 1, negative 3, and 2. They're all prime, and none of them are the same prime, so I don't have any prime, or I don't have a GCF. So I start with my box. When I fill in my box, I do the first term and the last term, and those multiply to be my product of 2x squared. My sum is what I'm going to fill into the missing blanks, an x and an x that need to add up together to get to negative 3. So again, in y equals, I put 2 divided by x, and I'm looking for an x and a y that will add to add to negative 3. So I put 2 divided by x in y equals, and I go look at my table. Remember, I'm only looking at whole numbers. 2 plus 1 is a 3, but I need a negative 3, so I need to keep going. 1 plus 2 is 3, but again, I need a negative 3. So if I go up, because I'm needing negatives that will multiply to be a positive, so they're both going to be negative, negative 1 plus negative 2 is a negative 3. So in my box, I have a negative 1 and a negative 2. My GCF in this column, x squared and negative 2x, share an x. Negative 1x and 2 share a negative 1. Remember, whatever is closest to the edge of your box is the sign that you put. X squared and negative 1x share an x. Negative 2x and 2 share a negative 2. So my factors are x minus 1 and x minus 2. Looking at problem 3, they don't all have x's, so that wouldn't be a GCF. I have the number 4, 15, and 25. 4 is even, and it's 2 times 2. 15 is 5 times 3. 25 is 5 times 5. So 15 and 25 share a 5, but 4 does not, meaning I do not have a GCF. So I can start to fill in my box. In my box, I have my first term and my last term. Remember, anywhere that you have your first term that's a number greater than 1 is where you absolutely have to use the box. If you found a pattern where you don't always have to use it, this is a time where you definitely have to. Your product, when multiplied, negative 25 times 4x squared is negative 100x squared. And then my sum is that negative 15x. I'm looking for two x's to put in here that added up to a negative 15 when originally multiplied. So in y equals, I type in negative 100 divided by x. And I look at my table. So I'm looking for two numbers that add to negative 15. So 1 plus negative 100 is negative 99. 2 plus negative 50 is negative 48, not a whole number. 4 plus negative 25 is negative 21. 5 plus negative 20 is negative 15, which is what I needed. So my factors are going to be a 5 that's positive and a 20 that's negative. And remember, we got this by putting negative 100 divided by x in y equals. Next, I look for my GCFs. So 4x squared and negative 20x share a 4 and an x. 5x and negative 25 share a 5. 4x squared and 5x just share an x. They have no numbers in common. And negative 20x and negative 25 share a negative 5. It's negative because the number closest to the edge is negative. So 4x plus 5 and x minus 5 are my two factors. Problem 4, I see all numbers, so I don't have any 1s, so I need to look for a GCF. 6 is 2 and 3, 7 is prime, 49 has a 7 in it, but 6 does not have a 7, so there is no GCF. I start by filling in my box. I have 6c squared and negative 49. Both of those multiply to be my product, which is a negative 294c squared. And then my sum is 7c, so I have a c and a c that add together to get 7. So in y equals, I'm going to put negative 249 divided by x and go find my factors. Sorry, 294. Now remember, we're only looking for whole numbers, and we are looking for two whole numbers, an x and a y, that we could add together to get a positive 7. So 1 plus negative 294 is not going to be anywhere close. Not going to be close. That would be negative 95. That's not close. We're getting closer. Negative 49 and 6 would be negative 42. Negative 42 and 7 would be like negative 35. Not a whole number, not a whole number, not a whole number, not a whole number, not a whole number. 14 and negative 21 would be a negative 7. Still looking for whole numbers. Oh, how about 21 and negative 14? 21 minus 14 would be 7. So I'm going to have a positive 21 and a negative 14. From here I find my GCF. 6 and negative 14, just looking at the numbers. These are both even, so they will both share 2. They also both have a c. 21 and 49 are both factors, or multiples, of 7. 6 and 21 share a 3. They also share a c. And then negative 14 and negative 49 both share a negative 7. So my two factors are 2c plus 7 and 3c minus 7. And again, the order of the parentheses does not matter as long as you have both of them and what's in them is the same. So problem 5 starts out by asking us what are the factors whose product yields the trinomial 2y cubed plus 16y squared plus 14y. So I notice that all of these are even, so that means I'm going to be able to take a 2 out of all of them. Because I only have a 2, I can't take out more. And I also notice all of these have a y. So they all share a 2 and a y. Remember that we divide it out. So 2 divided by 2 is 1, or it cancels. And y cubed divided by y is y squared. My exponents get smaller. 16 divided by 2 is 8. Y to the 2 minus 1 is y. And then 14 divided by 2 is 7. Y divided by y cancels. So now I use the box for what's in parentheses. I have a y squared and a 7. Multiply those to get my product. And then my sum is at 8y, so I'm looking for 2 y's that will add to 8. In y equals, I put my product divided by x, so 7 divided by x. Looking at whole numbers, 1 plus 7 would give me 8. So those are going to be my two numbers. I have a positive 1 and a positive 7. Looking for my GCFs down the column, y squared and 7y share a y. 1y and 7 just share a 1, meaning they don't really share that much, but you can always share a 1. Y squared and y share a y. 7y and 7 share a 7. So my two factors would be y plus 1 and y plus 7. Problem 6 asks us to identify the expression that represents y squared minus 36 in factored form. Now this one is a bit of a special case. We can rewrite this as y squared plus 0y minus 36 because we need to know what happened with that sum. All of the other terms we've had so far have had three terms, a y squared, a y, and a number, and this one doesn't have that y term. That just means that y term was 0, so whatever your two factors are added to 0, so they canceled out. They were still there originally in the multiplying, and so we're still going to treat this one like normal. We have our first term and our last term, and those multiply to create our product. And then we have our sum, which is 0y. So we have a y, and they canceled out to give us 0. So in y equals, I'm putting negative 36 divided by x, and I'm looking for two terms that I could add together to get 0. So negative 36 divided by x. 1 and negative 36 do not cancel. 2 and negative 18 don't cancel. 3 and negative 12 don't cancel. 4 and negative 9 don't cancel. 6 and negative 6 would cancel. We have a positive 6 and a negative 6. If you add them together, they would cancel. So we're going to have a positive 6 and a negative 6. So from here, I still find my GCS. If you notice, this problem looks exactly the same as every problem. We just had to write in that 0y to help us see what our sum would be. So y squared and negative 6y share a y. 6y and negative 36 share a 6. Y squared and 6y share a y. Negative 6y and negative 36 share a negative y. So for this one, my factor is going to be y plus 6 and y minus 6. The next two problems are more examples of special cases. So problem 7 asks us to express 4a squared plus 16 as a product of factors. So the first thing I'm going to do is write in a plus 0a squared to help me remember that I'm missing a term in there. Now when I look at all these, you don't have to use the 0 to find a GCF because you can take anything out of 0 because there's nothing there anyways. So 4 and 16 are both multiples or both factors of 4. So I can take out a 4 and I have a squared plus 0a plus 4. So I have my box, a squared plus 4. So my product is going to be 4a squared. My sum is still going to be 0a, so I'm looking for an a and an a that add to 0. In y equals, I put my product of 4. And I look at the table. Now again, I'm looking for two whole numbers that will cancel to equal 0. So 1 plus 4 is 5. 2 plus 2 is 4. 4 plus 1 is 5, and I run out of whole numbers. So I can go look at my negatives. These are the only negatives you're going to have. Negative 1 plus negative 4 is negative 5. Negative 2 plus negative 2 is negative 4. Negative 4 plus negative 1 is negative 5. So one thing I want to do first is make sure I put my product in correctly, because right now I'm not seeing any real answers. If I'm still not seeing any real answers and I know I've put this in correctly, then this would be my final answer. You could also write it as this. We put the 0 in there to help us see what the right answer was, but because there's nothing I can do further, I don't have to put that 0 in there anymore. Problem 8, looking at these, I can see they both share a 12, so I take that 12 out. From here, I can add in a plus 0y to help me remember my sum is 0y's. And my product needs to multiply to a negative 12. So I have my two factors, y squared and negative 12. I'm going to put negative 12 divided by x into y equals, and see what my possible products or what possible factors I could get. Remember, I'm looking for two numbers that will add to 0. So 1 plus negative 12 is not 0. 2 plus negative 6 is not 0. 3 plus negative 4 is not 0. 4 plus negative 3 is not 0. 6 plus negative 2 is not 0. 12 plus negative 1 is not 0, and I've run out of whole numbers. You can go look on the negatives, but I'll tell you right now there's nothing else that's going to happen. So if you don't have any factors, if there's nothing you can put into your box, then you have to stop where you're at. Be very careful, because sometimes we have factors that are just way down, so make sure you check. Pretty much once you get back to this number, whatever your product is, so like when I got to 12, there were no more numbers after 12, like when I went 13, 14, 15, there weren't any more. So if you've gotten to what your product was and you haven't found a factor, go up and check the negatives. If you check the negatives and there's still nothing, then maybe your problem just stopped exactly where it was.